Well, joining me now to talk more about this deal in more detail is Jacob Shapiro. He's the co-owner and manager at Fantom Comics right here in Washington, D.C. Welcome to the show.
It's a pleasure to be here.
So help us understand, why are comic book fans, sci-fi enthusiasts, fans of superheroes, why are they so excited about this deal?
Simply put, fans are really excited to see all their favorite Marvel heroes in one place. Back in the 90s, when Marvel wasn't doing so well, they sold off the film rights of all their different characters to a bunch of different companies. Now, Disney owns Marvel. Marvel is on top of the world. They're ready to bring it all back in. Most notably, the XMen and the Fantastic Four. People are really excited to see them be able to cross over with the Avengers, Captain America, Thor, Black Widow, all of them.
And we saw a lot of people getting very excited. We saw a lot of people on social media wondering if this means a comeback for Wolverine from the X-Men franchise. What sort of content are we likely to see in the future, you think?
So obviously, we're going to see a bunch more X-Men stuff. We're going to see Wolverine team up with the Avengers. But something we're going to see is we're going to see a lot more safe X-Men and Wolverine and stuff. Marvel, they've got a formula. They do what they do really well. They piece everything together, and they do the solo films. They do the team-ups. X-Men and what Fox has been doing, it's a lot more scatterbrained. They haven't had quite as much success, but they have a few really interesting things, like on the television side of things. They've got their Legion television show. They've got The Gifted. They've been doing a few interesting things, and they're willing to take more risks, like with Deadpool and Logan, which were both a little bit smaller budget and a little bit weirder. And I think with how huge Marvel is, they're a little bit less likely to take risks with Deadpool and Wolverine once those characters come over to Disney.
Yes, certainly not movies for the kids there.
Yeah.
Now, we know that Disney has a much bigger footprint in China and the rest of Asia than Fox does. So looking at this more adult content that we're discussing, how do you see that playing out over there? That's
a really interesting question. I think a lot about Batman vs. Superman. That was a really dark movie. That was put out by Warner Brothers and DC Comics. That movie did great in the Asian market. So I do think that China could handle some of the darker, more serious characters, but obviously some of these Fox films, they're R-rated. Marvel under Disney hasn't done anything that dark and gritty before. They're known to be a lot more light. So definitely we're gonna see a few changes. Disney's already done this before. I know on Iron Man 3, a recent Disney Marvel film, they filmed some scenes that were specifically made for the Chinese version of the film. So I'm sure we're going to get maybe some edits, maybe some slightly different versions of the characters. And Deadpool in particular is a character who he's a comedic character, plays off a lot of American culture for a lot of the jokes, and some of that won't translate as well to the Asian market, so he'll probably be toned down a little bit.
Now, we know that this deal leaves Sony as essentially the only outside studio currently licensing major Marvel characters. How do you think how this deal is going to impact then the contract renewal?
Well, Disney's already been making some moves in regards to Sony because, as we've seen, Spider-Man did appear in Civil War and did appear in Spider-Man Homecoming happened. That was a huge success for Disney, and they've reached kind of this halfway mark. I think what Sony is going to be looking towards, and I think what a lot of people are talking about, is that with Disney and Fox merging, the first and third biggest studios, that we might be seeing Sony team up with maybe NBC Universal, maybe Time Warner, maybe Viacom. So maybe we get another giant mega company.
Now, it's interesting. If you're one of these either telecoms companies or streaming services, and you're seeing this deal come together, what do you think they're going to be most worried about?
I think a lot of people are worried that Disney is becoming the biggest entertainment entity really to ever exist. One of the biggest ever to exist in the history of the earth. And I think a lot of people are afraid that, having some good X-Men movies isn't worth having a near monopoly. So I think, with bigger companies buying other bigger companies, I think people are worried, including comic book fans. Comic book fans are excited to see their characters together, but they're a little afraid if, 2 or 3 companies are controlling everything they do in their daily life.
And what do you think this means for smaller companies who perhaps want to get into this space, but you have this behemoth now kind of overseeing everything?
I think it's really tough. I think one of the most unfortunate things is, in addition to their superhero stuff, Fox is known for doing a lot of smaller and mid-budget films, and we're not going to see nearly as many of those anymore. Disney's all about the huge blockbuster films. We're not going to see, even a movie like Logan was a little bit smaller budget than you normally see. We're not going to get nearly as many of those anymore. We're going to get tiny independent films, and we're going to get giant blockbuster films, and we're going to lose out a lot of stuff in the middle.
Well, that's rather sad, actually. Well, thank you so much, Jacob Shapiro there of Fantom Comics.